Stacey Broughton demonstrates a classic halo on a head block. Head blocks are a great resource giving learners the opportunity to master the technical aspects of basic cuts before applying them to a client or model. Having mastered the technique, the skills can be transferred onto a live head where other considerations need to be accommodated, such as growth patterns, texture and suitability.
My name is Stacey, and today we're going to be extending our knowledge with the head block basics. You've already completed the longer layers, the long bob, the graduated bob, so now it's time to actually work into a rounder shape. The great thing about this shape, what you're going to learn from this, is that we're going to be working on a fringe, we're going to be working on a shape which is close to the hairline at the back, and the main thing is to work with a round shape. To create it, we work with straight lines, because it's very difficult to cut a round line. To work like this is very difficult. So we create by working with straight lines and letting the head shape create the curves for us. So for instance, with the fringe area, we work more narrow through here, and then gradually we can widen that shape and put more of a curve into it. The same with the back area. When we work the line through here and do the joining through there, we can then round the corner off afterwards. That way it makes it much easier. The danger is that if you cut too far backwards, you expose this part of the neck too much. You need to fill that area in a little bit so we get a beautiful shape onto the face. Because a round shape is very difficult to put on a person because it's not very complementary. But we have to work with the features on the face and keep the fringe a bit heavier through here, drop down, take it round the cheekbones, down just past the corner of the jaw and then into the back. So you're still filling in this area here, so it becomes very complementary. So this is going to be the halo.
Stacey assesses where the hair is woven onto the head block in the top. He then sections from this point down to the central part of the ears, and then from the same point then through to the centre front.
So this is my sectioning for the halo, and before you commit yourself to the shape, we're going to do the back. Now what I do is I find out where the hair is actually woven into the wig block, and I section from there down to the central part of the ears, and then from there all the way down centre back. Now my first sections in the back area, rather than going horizontal as you normally would through here, I'm actually working a slight angle within them. The reason why I'm doing this is that it's extending this line through here. So it's easier to tell if you've got a straight line or you're going slightly twisted on the balance. It just aids in actually cutting the hair. Now as I work with sections, what I will do, my sections will slowly pivot round this way. That way it equals out the shape. So all we're going to be doing is cutting a straight line through this area. Now when I cut the line on a wig block, I'm going to be cutting it through my comb. You can actually increase the tension on the hair by using your scissors and comb, by pushing the hair into the comb this way, and that will increase the tension, so giving you a little bit of graduation. The other way is to just literally use the comb to create tension and then cut the line. That way you'll have less graduation. The great thing about doing this type of sectioning through here, you use the ears as guides. So I'm going from the nape of the neck, go slightly upwards, and I'm aiming for either the mid part of the ear or top part of the ear. That is the easiest way to create this sectioning pattern. On the wig block, I'm going to be cutting a straight line. When I cut the straight line, I put the head down very slightly, and that way when the head comes back up, it creates a slight curve.
Stacey starts his process in the back area using a curved section, minimal tension, no elevation, and cuts a square line. Stacey uses a curved line in order to incorporate all of the back hairline into his initial guideline. This also means he has an equal amount of hair throughout this initial section. Please note that Stacey establishes his guide in the centre, then works outwards into the sides.
You can see how I worked the hair with using my comb and my scissors. And sometimes I'm actually taking a long time to actually get the hair in position before I cut it. It's important to take time. Don't rush this process. Just take a little bit of time, get the shape in, a little bit one side, a little bit the other. Now, I'm not going to check the balance yet until I get the line a little bit broader. So it's probably after the next section then I'm going to check the balance, because I've got a better visual aid because it's wider. When the line's narrow, it's hard and it's difficult to check whether it's level. So I'll let it get a little bit wider and then check the balance. You can see the position of the head is very slightly down and it's just a straight line that runs through here. You've got to keep this straight line principle because then when the head comes up, it will be slightly curved. My next section has slowly pivoted up the head. This way, eventually, it will level out as we go up the head. The section also goes from below the occipital area towards the top of the ear. And that way you can remember what you're going to do on this side. The sectioning is exactly the same. So now we work in the same principle as we did before, is with the hair within the comb and then the scissors underneath.
Stacey then proceeds with parallel sections using his underneath as a guide. Please note, as he works up the head, he reduces the angle of each section and eventually works horizontally. Stacey checks his guide after a few sections before continuing up the head.
One little thing that I do when I'm cutting the hair is after I've completed a section, I don't just leave the hair sitting there. I work with it. I try and push the hair under. So I'm controlling the hair and trying to get a visual reference for the shape. That really helps you later on. It also helps the hair to sit into the shape and you can find any defects.
Please note, as Stacey proceeds, he is mindful to take even sections with even dampness.
As you may have noticed, what I do is I move the head away from where I'm cutting. So when I'm doing this piece here, I just move the head directly away from me. That way it creates a little bit more tension on the scalp, and that way it makes the angle more accessible. These last two sections, normally on a person, we would leave them out and blow dry the shape and blow dry these into the shape and then cut them afterwards. But today, because we're doing a head block, we're going to actually join them into the outside shape. Now we've completed the back area, what we're going to be doing is we're going to just extend this line a little bit further forwards to aid us in cutting this line down through here.
Now revise Stacey's method and try on your own head block, mindful of points to watch. 1. When working with the nape area, ensure a curved section is established in the initial stages. This section will then get pivoted to a horizontal line as you work through the back. 2. Ensure even sections and even dampness throughout. 3. When working with your back area, employ minimal tension and use your cutting comb as a guide. 4. Ensure that your eye line is at the same level as your cutting line. 5. Constantly check your balance.
So we're going to be working to just past the parietal ridge through this area with slightly diagonal sections, dropping the hair down over the ears. The reason why we do this now is that it helps us deal with the ear area and it doesn't become a problem later on.
Next, Stacey takes diagonal sections from the tip of the ear. He combs the hair down using his scissors and comb to lift and guide the hair over the ear, and continues his line with minimal tension to accommodate the ear area. Stacey then assesses where his front perimeter shape will go in order to check his balance. Stacey then works up to the round of the head, the parietal ridge, with the same process. Stacey repeats the same process on the second side.
The main area of concern is not particularly this area in the front, but the area that is just above the ear. So now we've resolved that, now we can move through to the fringe area and then work on the connection. So this is my fringe section. I'm careful not to go too far back on the head, otherwise if we pull this hair forward the fringe will wander too wide. Also the sectioning through here I do a little bit narrower than what I need. This is because the fringe will eventually travel backwards a little bit further when I curve the edges. If I take the fringe section too wide through here, it's going to expose too much of the cheekbones through here. So I need to keep it a little bit narrower so that I can get the shape to drop down.
Stacey takes a horizontal subsection 2 centimeters deep and using his comb, minimal tension, cuts a square line on the brow of the nose. Stacey starts in the centre and gradually works outwards in small sections on both sides. Having established his line, Stacey then checks through his fingers and refines his edge. Stacey continues with the same process throughout his fringe area. Now revise Stacey's method and try on your own head block, mindful of points to watch. 1. Take clean diagonal sections. 2. Be careful to ensure the correct position of comb and scissors, following the guide from the back. 3. Ensure minimal tension around the ears. 4. Ensure a narrow triangular section in the fringe. 5. Ensure even dampness and minimal tension when establishing the guide in the fringe area.
Within the side area, we'll take diagonal sections, just run down this way, but don't comb the hair forwards, let the hair fall vertically, let the gravity do the work for you. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dividing the hair up into bite-sized chunks. And then lay this hair over your fingers. And now we're going to be putting a steeper angle than we require. That way we can always bevel the angle backwards. So if we do the angle too far back, we might be taking it too far back and exposing too much of the jawline. So we drop it down this way and then we can adjust the angle. But notice how I rest my scissors on my fingers. Again, I rest my scissors on my fingers. I use my fingers to help me. Add another part of the section to it. Remember, don't comb the hair forwards. By combing the hair forwards, you're going to add graduation. Now I've got my angle, I'm going to adjust this by just pulling backwards a little bit. So I start at the top section, I just take a fraction off, and that will be just enough to give me a nice open area within here. Keep my fingers as flat as possible. So I only work on the hair that is stable.
Stacey next chooses to place his guide in the other side for balance, mindful of body position and finger angle. Having established his guide in both sides, Stacey returns to his first side and continues with the same process using his guide from underneath. He chooses to complete the whole side in order to maintain balance and consistency of angles and body position. Stacey then refines his blend between the side and back areas, which are governed by the natural fall of the crown. Stacey then repeats his process on the second side. Stacey then blow dries his shape. Now revise Stacey's method and try on your own head block, mindful of points to watch. 1. The section should reflect the intended perimeter shape. 2. Allow the hair to fall naturally, avoiding combing forwards. 3. Cut a slightly steeper angle than required to allow for refinement, natural growth patterns and suitability. 4. Lay the hair over the fingers, avoiding elevation and over-direction. 5. Be mindful of body position and finger angle on both sides.
Basically just chipping away at the underneath sort of sections, because the hair on this side, on the block, actually is woven forward a bit more than the other. So the other side's more of a curve this way. This one needs to be curved the opposite way to balance the shape, to get it to work. So it just takes small adjustments of the graduation, really. Similar to natural hair, you'll have to adjust the technique very slightly on both sides to combat or work with the growth patterns. The main thing is to try and expose the same amount of eye, the same amount of cheekbone on both sides. You can see as I comb the hair, this hair's got more volume in these areas, which is just how it's been woven, really. So I just have to combat it with a little bit of curving. And sometimes you have to just point it just a tiny bit to flatten the hair in to get it to sit better. And then what I do in the corner of the jaw here, you need to leave quite a bit of weight to fill that hole in, like what we said on Hello Halo. We leave a corner here to fill the area, because if you remember on Hello Halo, it's, you know, this sort of shape, you know, triangular, similar to this really, but a lot heavier in the front. And working on natural hair can be a bit more forgiving. So you should check out Hello Halo as well to see the different variations of this type of work. So this is my finished look, the halo, and you can see the most difficult part within this haircut is that's running from the fringe down to the bottom corner. But you will notice that I did leave weight on these bottom corners through here. So as the back comes round and joins onto the front with an angle through there, which is through here, you need to keep a little bit of weight there. You just round it very gently. Once you've actually dried the shape in, you need to actually keep going through these edges and just keep cleaning them and beveling them. What I mean by beveling, sometimes, depending on how the hair grows, on this wig block, it sort of like is woven a bit more forwards this side than this side. It seems to be kicking across slightly asymmetrically. So what happens is, on this side of the shape, it will sit quite still and quite static, and you don't really have to do masses of work on that side, and it sits naturally slightly bowed. On this side, because the hair's pushing forward, the line that we've put in, it pushes it and makes it do more of this. So you need to work on it in that sort of angle. So you're like carving in to try and reduce the bulk that will form within that area. But you've got to be careful, because if you take too much out, it'll run away with you, and you'll end up with that on this side and that on the other side. So you've just got to be a little bit careful. Sometimes what you do is you can just drop the head down a little bit and then just check the balance. And you just check the balance looking straight onto it to see whether they are balancing in angles. Now the back corners, these corners here, it's very easy to get carried away and start cleaning away and chipping away too much of the hair. Again, it's a very minimal amount, so when you've got the corner, you're just taking off the very tip of it to make the hair just sit in a little bit. If you take too much off, it'll end up sitting back and you'll end up with a different sort of shape running through like that. Now in the back area through here, because we've just cut the hair within the comb, you will need to clean up little bits of graduation that you will have in the nape. That is just natural forming, but please make sure you clean that out to get a nice clean shape that will sit there. These angles are very difficult to achieve, so you do have to spend a little bit of time. One thing, don't get impatient and don't start over directing this hair forwards like this and trying to join that line in, because you can see how much hair you have there, but this hair is not from this angle here. This hair is from here. So if you cut that hair off, you're going to layer and graduate and end up with a hole through there. So you've got to be a little bit patient, let the hair fall naturally all the way down. And it will naturally graduate because gravity is pulling the hair down and the angle's running down this way. So just let that naturally graduate, but try and cut the hair in the way that it falls, not against its growth. So this is a great technique to master and practice, and it leads to many things from this. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on about Hello Halo, it's a great one to go towards because, you know, we're leaving a heavier front, carving it back, but still working on a similar principle to this, where we're leaving the corners through this point here, so we're putting square and triangular shapes on to somebody's head to create a round shape. If you spend time and master this technique, it leads to many different things. It will teach you a little bit about the fringes, about putting curved fringes in and how it affects people's faces. It will teach you how to control graduation, and more importantly, it will teach you how to be patient, because you have to spend a lot of time perfecting these angles. The other important element is about balance, because face shapes are very different on one side to the other, and you have to cope with putting different angles on different sides of the head to create the same look on both sides of the head. You will only understand that by doing it and practicing it. So this is a great haircut for learning that. It's not very often that you use a round angle or a round shape on anybody. You generally work with shapes which are curved against the shape of the head rather than this way. But if you can master this, it opens up such a great diary for doing different elements and different looks. One look that springs to mind is a very classical sort of like lopsided beret sort of shape, or we call it an asymmetric sort of shape. By working with these round angles, you're able to transfer them to the front, to the back, to the sides. You can do anything, so it opens up a great diary of looks for you. This is the halo.